Is PC gaming cooked with RAM pricing seemingly going to the moon right now? Or are there signs that things are going to turn around in early 2026? Welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. We're going to go through all kinds of what else RAM related questions right now in our December 2025 Q&A, including what the heck's going on with Micron killing off the Crucial brand? Does that portend terrible things for RAM? We'll also talk about RAM survival strategies right now. What's the difference between CL38, CL36, CL30 RAM, and do you actually need 6,000 speed for AMD systems? And we'll take all of your PC building questions. If you get value out of this video, please give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel. And of course, subscribe for more cool PC content. Let's jump into it. This video is sponsored by VIP SCD Key. Say goodbye to crazy expensive Windows licenses and that terrible Activate Windows watermark. Right now, use the links in the video description, head over to VIP SCD Key and get a Windows 11 OEM license for a great price. Pick your product license, then use the PC Builder discount code PC25 for an additional 30% off during their Black Friday sale. Go to the activation settings on your PC, put in the code, and boom! Windows is fully licensed for a crazy low price. And they have Microsoft Office licenses too. Use the links in the video description. All right, we got Rabbi Dr. Katz asking, with high RAM prices, the barrier to entry to gaming PCs gonna be $200 or more higher. What are the implications of that for the next year or two? So 2026, 2027 RAM prices. Will a lot fewer people be building new gaming PCs? Nathan basically asking a very similar question. Is PC building gonna fizzle out for a while? I don't think so. And here's why. Let's actually just jump into some RAM prices that I'm seeing right now. This is our RAM video that I did. Don't waste your money, how to buy RAM right now. I went through everything. And at the time I was saying you could still get RAM around $200, but it was more like $220 in some cases. What have RAM prices done? So this is the middle of November I did this, and I continue to update this list down in the video description here every day, basically. Every day I like literally go in there and slug it out with Amazon, Newegg, and all the other listings out there to find the best listings right now. Here's what I'm finding, at least for the time being. You can still pick up a 32 gigabyte kit of DDR5 5600 CL30. That's actually very close. We'll talk about RAM speed in just a second. Very close to 6000 CL30. Man, the CL30 is very important. 5600 is barely off from 6000 for $243. Now, it's not a great kit in terms of it doesn't have RGB on it. It doesn't have a massive heat spreader. It's essentially a kind of kit that you would get that's a little bit more budget. And Clev obviously is a little bit more of an off brand, at least when it comes to RAM kits. That being said, these kits work just fine. The other ones I'm seeing out there also by Clev for DDR5 6000 CL30, about the cheapest I'm seeing right now. This is a white RGB kit, kind of a little bit harder to find. Can't really find a black RGB kit around this price. $298. The cheapest one I can find for black is about $315. And if you want like quote unquote name brand RAM, and they use the same chips. By the way. You just slap your own branded stuff on top of it. Like if you want G-Skill, it's like $330 to $350, at least at the time of filming. And I will say at Newegg, we highlighted this in our best PC builds video that we did a couple of days ago. There were some incredible DDR5 RAM combos with other things like coolers and with motherboards right now. A lot of those in that video sold out, but there have been some new ones dropping because I'm filming this on a Monday. Typically on a Monday or Tuesday is when you see a lot of the new deals drop. Over the weekend is when things sell out. Right now over at Newegg, you can pick up an X870E-H Asus ROG Strix motherboard. That's like a $400 and something motherboard, at least for the most of this year. Right now they're selling it for $259. That's one thing we are seeing, by the way. Motherboard sales are massively down out there right now. There was an article, in fact, that motherboard sales are down as much as 50%. And we're seeing the Black Friday discounts for those motherboards basically extended. It's entirely possible that those Black Friday pricing levels will become the new normal for a lot of the motherboards. It's not clear, but so far that pricing is largely held out there. On top of that, you get a DDR5 6000 CL36 RGB kit by Corsair. You know, people are like, Jason, $409, totally insane. What's going on? Now, before we all lose our minds, notice the combos. So not only do you save a lot of money off the motherboard, and then you save another $61 in comboing with the RAM kit. And on top of that, the RAM kit comes with a free 280 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler, and it's actually quite a nice cooler too. It's the IQ one here. Is it worth $109? Not $280 yet? Probably this one. Sometimes they say, oh, value of $160. It's not really $160. Total is $578.98. Now that's if you wanted a really high-end motherboard, you were looking at doing a really high-end system. And again, the X3D CPUs, and we'll talk more about this later, don't really care about the RAM speed. The difference between this kit and CL30, minuscule with a 7800 X3D or a 9800 X3D. So for $578, that's actually a pretty good deal. And then just really quickly, what's out there to offset some of those RAM prices? Remember, people were building gaming PCs at the beginning of the year when 9070 XTs were like $900, and people were doing it at $900. That's $300, or was that $200 or $300 more over what it is right now. Similar kind of price gap, but the Ryzen 7600X, $180 right now. You look at motherboards, I mean, B650, if you don't mind buying a B650, and B850, by the way, have also, the prices dropped out. X870 and X870E motherboards, significant, crazy discounts right now. $109 for a good B650 motherboards. That's crazy cheap. 360 millimeter all-in-one liquid coolers. The bottom is basically falling out of the cooler market. I'll tell you, air coolers are almost like not cost worthy right now. They're like 15 to 20 bucks, even for very good ones for a budget tower air cooler out there. PSUs are down. This continues to be an incredible PSU deal, by the way. $82 for 850 watts, A-tier rated. And then of course we got like PC cases, $69 for a case that has regularly sold for about 90 bucks. So we're seeing price discounts across the board. Here's the sticking point, obviously, it's the PC part picker price trends, DDR5 5600, 2x16 gigabyte kits. So the 32 gigabyte kits. And this is where we've come crazy skyrocketing here from September, late September, all the way up until past Black Friday. But what has happened since? Prices have begun to level out. They haven't stopped rising yet, but the rate of increase is slowing down. Now, why might that be? I mean, look, there's no guarantee that they won't speed back up. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, we're all good now. I just want to say I've noticed in the last couple of weeks that since Black Friday ended, the prices have slowed way down in terms of their increases. And that's largely because you don't see the panic buying going on out there as much. And as a result, I don't think that the RAM companies, because they are gouging us, make no mistake about it, we are getting gouged. Some of the kits they're selling right now have been sitting, collecting dust on shelves, basically, at retailers, and they couldn't get rid of the things because they were considered undesirable timings, and now they're selling them for crazy high amounts. And it's not like they paid that money to produce that particular kit, by the way. They're just selling it for crazy high prices now. So they're making a lot of money on us. Unfortunately, that's the way the market works when you have constrained supply. Is that just like with GPUs or with CPUs or any of the shortages we've seen, these folks who act like our friends, right, when things are tough and they really need to fight for every dollar out there, oh, we got your back. As soon as something like this happens, they're the first one to be like, oh, no, price go up. But I do want to say that right now you can still offset a lot of that pricing. And I expect maybe some of these lower prices will continue into the new year. I do believe we'll hit a point, unless we go into like a severe shortage where there's no more memory. We saw that with GPUs in 2020 and 2021, where we never hit this slowdown point. We basically just went, whew, and everything was just out of stock. And then you had to buy everything off eBay and buy them off a scalper, basically. It feels like we're hitting an ebb, and then we'll come right back down, obviously to a higher place than we were in October or September. But I do think maybe those prices will start to level out a little bit, especially if the AI bubble does burst. I think all the other prices are going to have to stay low because they got to sell motherboards, they got to sell coolers, they got to sell PSUs out there. So they'll cut to the bone if they have to keep that business going while they kind of wait out the RAM prices out there. I actually think 2026 is going to look better than most of 2025. What happened in 2025? GPU prices were absolutely insane for most of the year, paying $300 to $500 over MSRP. Obviously not at the budget end of things. Those people are going to get hurt the worst. So for them, things are going to be a little bit worse, but for mid-range to high-end, you're actually going to be spending less on building a system now and in 2026 than you probably were in most of 2025. Now, again, fingers crossed, as long as the RAM prices meet some kind of equilibrium. Our Riffraff Jonesy wants to know what's going on with the Crucial situation. If you're not familiar with what that is, basically Micron is one of 3 major RAM manufacturers in the entire world. And they have a brand called Crucial where they sell direct to consumers SSD and RAM. they're going to be shutting that down. They just announced this a couple days ago, shutting it down completely after 29 years. Imagine that. Imagine owning a business for 29 years and then shutting it down. Why? They want to sell to AI. That's basically it. They want to sell the AI out there. Now, it's not clear whether or not they're going to reduce production of DDR5 and DDR4 memory that they're already producing right now, or if what they're going to do is they're going to use the memory that they were going to sell through the Crucial brand, and instead they're going to give it to G.Skill, to Team Group, to Silicon Power, Corsair, other RAM vendors out there instead, and use it to fulfill those contracts, because right now production is very, very tight. Hopefully they will keep producing it, because right now the RAM market is absolutely battered. We really can't afford this. And if anything, this has become the absolute poster child of AI gobbling up everything out there. All right, we got Kindred wants to know, since the RAM price hike, I'm sure others can't really justify buying CL30 kits anymore. I think they mean DDR5 6000 CL30, which is what we were recommending for Ryzen as kind of the sweet spot. They're wondering how much worse CL36 kits are than CL30 and what's the new RAM sweet spot. Serene Sunset, basically similar question. What's the disadvantage using CL36 or CL38 versus CL30, specifically with AMD builds? So let's focus on AMD. I would say if you want a full understanding of this, I break down how to understand the speed of all this, including stuff like the speed versus the cache latency in our Best RAM for Gaming 2025 video. Obviously, don't look at the recommendations on that video because we did it when RAM prices were quote unquote normal or under the old RAM pricing scheme, but it will give you a fundamental understanding of how RAM works basically in terms of the speeds. RAM for AMD, you generally wanted to stick to 6000 because that's about as fast as the memory controller on the CPU can run and still be at the same speed as the RAM. If the RAM went faster than that, the CPU memory controller oftentimes can't clock up to it, and so it would go into what's called a 2-to-1 mode. Now, here's the thing. It's a relatively small FPS loss between going from a 1-to-1 to a 2-to-1 on AMD systems, the way the memory architecture works. But under the old RAM pricing scheme, DDR5 6000 CL30 was kind of like the cheapest out there. It was like a $10 savings to get worse RAM. So why? So you always just got the better stuff because there's also future upgradability to think about and things like that. So in testing, what we find though is that CL36 or CL38 RAM versus CL30, very little difference unless you get to an RTX 4090 or a 5090 or relatively high-end GPU operating, especially at lower resolutions. And as you go up in resolution, the RAM speed matters less. So right now I would say the sweet spot is, and we went over this in our best RAM video, maybe we'll just do that every month. Let me know if down in the comments if you want us just to go through the best RAM that we can find every month. I'm finding that anything, I would say 5600 CL40, which would equate to 6000 CL42 or faster RAM is absolutely fine. And it's okay to go over 6000 now, because again, it's a relatively small bump. It might add up to $50 to $70. And that $50, you could get more performance going from Ryzen 7600X to a 7700X. So why wouldn't you do that instead of get better RAM? Like, who cares making the 7600X a little faster? Get a 7700X instead, or a 9600X. So we can do the same thing jumping up to the 7800X 3D. If you're almost to the 7800X 3D, why get better RAM? Get the worst RAM and get the 7800X 3D, because those X3D CPUs absolutely do not really care about RAM speed, except again in these crazy circumstances, like if you have a 5090 and you're playing at 1080p or 1440p, like ultra low settings, then yeah, maybe you'll see a small difference, but I'm talking like a couple FPS difference at most. Here's a really good question. Nyla Creel wants to know, are there any cheap RAM sticks you should avoid buying during the shortage? I have seen like A Pacer or something like that. Just some kits out there that I've never seen before. And it's probably because I didn't have to look this deep before. You know, you could just buy whatever you wanted. V-Color was another one, although I did check in a V-Color. They appear on most of the QVL lists for the RAM out there. So I think that's probably fine. For DDR5, it does feel like it's a smaller pool. For DDR4, I have noticed a lot of off brands out there. I don't know if they're sending them in from off brands in China where they're making the DDR4 or not. But for DDR5, it seems limited to most of the brands that I'm familiar with. Clev is a brand that I've been recommending a lot because their pricing has been much better than everybody else. Some of the brands that I had been recommending quite a bit in the old days when they had the best pricing have been the ones that have massively raised their prices the most. And I'm looking at you, Silicon Power and Team Group. I recommended your kits for a long freaking time, And I feel like you're really screwing us over now, because if I look, who's the most expensive out there? Number one, Team Group, but number two, Silicon Power. Give me a freaking break. Gamers got long memory, so just I'm watching you. But I would just say, generally, most of the RAM out there is probably fine. Once you get it, I would test it as soon as you can, though. Put it in your build, because I think that you want to make sure that if it needs to get exchanged, because you will get bad kits. I've gotten bad kits from everybody once in a while. And yeah, we put it in, you try and clock it, you try and you adjust the voltage and stuff. Can't really fix it. I'm like, okay, well, the kit, clearly one stick. Usually one stick is just not great on it. Usually I'm like, okay, send it back, and they exchange it, and then next kit comes and it works fine. So I would just say, once you get your RAM kit, use it immediately. Make sure it's okay. Run like Memtest 64, like really hammer it. Make sure it's okay. And then, if it's not, exchange it right away. All right, Master Obi-Wan wants to know, love your channel, all your content. However, which one of your catch is the real star of the show? Is it Mr. Bear? Well, Mr. Bear, in case you can't see, is sitting actually right here. He's gonna get very mad at me as I move. So he actually sits here all the time, and this is his spot. He's gonna claw me if I'm not careful. This is his spot. He absolutely loves being here. On days when we're even not filming, he comes in here and he goes to work, basically. He goes to work every day. He's a very good kitty. Yes, say hello to your adoring fans. He's facing the wrong direction. He's clearly the star of the show. I think Waffles has recently become more the star of the show. He likes to get up here when we're filming and kind of get in front of things. And then Lisa, she likes to just jump on top of PC cases. So anytime we do a build, which often we do for member live streams, she tends to want to jump on top of the build and get some airtime there. So, but I would say Mr. Bear is the OG here. And yes, he's the star of the show more than I am. If you got value out of this video, please give likes. Makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this guy right here. And of course, subscribe for more cool PC content. Check out our best RAM buying guide right here. We go through everything you need to know to buy RAM in this environment. Even though the prices have gone up a little bit, we still maintain that list of the best RAM kits right here. Or check out the best GPU to buy in December 2025. Listen, man, GPU prices are likely to go up. Check this out right here. Get yourself a GPU, and we'll catch you on the next one.